I'm curious, just like in the world of martial arts businesses, and then the world of just like I don't know teaching. I've noticed that we've touched on this briefly before on the podcast, but mainly, sometimes you walk into a gym. There's a random instructor. They just teach something one day. The next day, it's completely random. There's not really like a proper. There's no systematization, and like students end up getting kind of lost. You've touched on the idea that you actually lesson plan, you do curriculums, but I guess the one thing I want to ask you is how is that important to the gym, and not just the obvious ways in terms of student development, but in terms of the whole business?
Well, man, if you forget the business for a second, just
Sure.
in general,
Hmm.
human beings like structure. They work better under structure. They they have more success under a regimented, uh, setup, and you are clearly more successful in anything you want to do in life, regardless if it's martial arts or not, if you have a system,
Hmm.
right? A something that you can track progress, you know, and that's uh, you know now pros and cons to everything. This is something that I've understood pretty much my whole martial arts career. You got to think pros and cons in everything you do. Nothing is perfect. There's no such thing as the perfect system. Um, but if you want, you know, a small group of super tough guys uh, that just want to focus on sport, then you can create that lion's den.
Mm.
You can create that snake pit. You can create that gladiator arena, all right, where you come in, do a couple of moves, and just roll, right? And every roll is to the death. And there's some pros to that. You develop. I think you're quicker to reach flow state with that. You are quicker to develop grit.
Mm.
Quicker to develop the idea of what to do and what not to do, because man, you are like, if you're getting beat up, you're like, oh damn. If you get beat up with the same thing over and over again, you're like, well, maybe I shouldn't do that anymore, right? So there's but the problem with that system is, of course, you're only going to have a small group of people that can handle that, and you are going to be one-trick ponies where you're only going to get good in certain areas,
Right.
and then you're gonna have holes in your game because when you don't have a curriculum, certain things are not being taught.
You enter an echo chamber
Certain,
within the small group of people.
yeah, so certain things are not going to be like, if there's no curriculum, it's just whatever the instructor wants to teach that day or whatever, right? So if he just focuses on guard, 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 very little on guard passing, very little on escapes, then eventually you're gonna run into problems because of those scenarios. But again, you can get away with just being tough and there's a lot of self-discovery, which I think is really good.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you go the other way with curriculums, it's structured. It's good for retentions of student retention. It's good for people knowing what they need to learn next. You have a more a better in-depth understanding of the overall fundamentals. You may have more longevity because there's less risk for injury or severe injuries. But again, that's the pros, where everybody can train safely and you don't need to worry about getting hurt. And that's the main thing about new students. They just hurt. But there is that, there isn't as much self-discovery. Everything is being handed to you, and on the system. I'm not sure if you can develop that grit if you're not rolling hard, but curriculums, to me, is ideally you want to find a balance, right? You need to find a balance between, I think white belts need curriculums, right? beginners need curriculums, right? But once you get past that certain stage where you are now, like you have a good understanding of the game, then you can, or if you have aspirations to be a successful competitor, then you need to be put in that gladiator arena, you know what I mean? And you need to have intense training sessions or competition training, right? And it's hard to find balance, but that's what I think every academy should try to do, is find a balance between, and keep in mind that not everybody's in the academy to be a gladiator, right? Some people just want to play, like there's a difference between championship and a game. Some people are there just maybe they want to play a game. Right? So let me rephrase that. There's playing a game and then there's playing a sport.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? So if you just want to do jiu-jitsu to play a game, yeah, you can tone it down, you can have fun, you can easy rolls with your friends. And that's another thing that I believe strongly on, is that the number one, I was speaking with some friends yesterday, the number one thing about BJJ, besides the technical, you know, the acquisition of technique, is the social aspect, right? The socializing with people, right? And I think that's what a lot of people come to the academy, you know, not just for learning jiu-jitsu, but because they have friendships and you build bonds and, you know, you get to know people. And you can have fun roles and play a game, right? But if you want to be successful in sport and chase those medals, then you need that, you know, gladiator arena, you know. You need that. And even within the gladiator arena, you can have levels, right? Because you have masters, you have older guys that want to be competitive still. So you can have masters competition, and then you can have the young lions competition. Sometimes you can cross over, but for the most part, it just doesn't make sense, you know, because, you know, a 45-year-old purple belt in the same weight class as a 24-year-old purple belt is just the speed factor alone, right? So for the most part, you should manage. If you're a good professor, you need to manage these things, because again, you don't want the masters guys to get injured or hurt. It doesn't make sense. I know some people are very stubborn about the idea that, oh, I can hang with anybody. Sure, until you get hurt. Right? So I think that there's a beauty behind the idea of masters divisions versus adults, right? So, and I think you should train with the level of skill and people that you're going to be facing, right? So man, there's so much to it, but I think that at least academy owners at least have a curriculum for your white belts. You know, from white to blue, maybe even blue to purple, you should have a curriculum. Now, but should you have a curriculum for brown and black? I don't think so. I think brown and black, I think it could be a lot of self-discovery and just, you know, doing your own kind of trial and error. I think it's super important that you do that. That, you know, you do your own research and follow through on some things that you want to try and experiment with on your own, right? And you try it when you're rolling and things like that. Only because, you know, there's so much stuff out there that I can't put everything into the curriculum, you know, and I can't, every time there's something new, you can't throw it into the curriculum.
No.
Now, you can replace certain things. You can You know what I mean? You can replace certain things because even the basics can be improved on, right? Even the fundamentals can be improved on, right? You know, there's always a better way to do a scissor sweep or a hip bump sweep, right? So you can, again, make improvements on the fundamentals, but, you know, they shouldn't be completely replaced. So, I mean, it's tricky, man. But I have curriculums for kids, I have curriculums for novice, and I have curriculum for intermediate. I do not have curriculum for brown and black.
What do you think for brown to black? What do you personally think needs to happen for the individual at that point?
I think they should just really try to increase their mat time.
Oh, interesting.
Rolls. Yeah.
So it's basically at
or
that
be,
point.
not increase,
Yeah.
but be consistent with it.
Mm.
Be consistent with it. Yeah.
What's the result of being more consistent, though? Are you looking for like just like
I'm
refining
looking for
certain
that.
growth engines?
To me, again, self-discovery, creating your own style of the way you do things, finding more flow state. That doesn't mean, listen, that doesn't mean you can't come to class and learn new things, and especially
Yeah.
if you're a competitor. I'm always doing, like, bringing new stuff to the table in the competition class. So I think it's important to keep evolving if you're an athlete, if you're a competitor. But if you're no longer a competitor, then I think you should, as you get older, you need to really fine-tune your basics and your fundamentals, because the older you get, the harder is going to be to do some of these more modern, more athletic moves, right? So I think you doesn't mean you can't try them. I'm not saying you shouldn't try them or learn them or have fun with them. I'm just saying that when shit hits the fan and you have to protect yourself against that 24-year-old, it's the basics that's going to save you, like a good defensive skills. You know what I mean? Good defensive skills, good close guard, so you can slow the younger guy down. I think less elaborate. As far as like not a whole lot of grip exchanges. I think that you'll have more longevity, because you can't expect like a 60-year-old, a 50-year-old guy to do some of the things that the younger kids are doing, right?
I expect
They
everyone
can still
to
roll,
everyone to know how to bolo.
They can still roll, they can still play, they can still have fun. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's just at a certain point, you will be able to stop going like inverting, like doing elaborate grip exchange. Things will slow down. Arthritis builds up a bit.
Well, man, neck issues and all that. You got to be careful with some of these things. Again, I'm not discouraging people from trying, from learning. You should always learn. You should always try something new. Like whenever something new comes out, I try it. I play with it. I have fun with my friends when I roll. And that's another thing. You have to have a certain relationship with certain people that you roll with, because they can still be fun. They can still be tough, but you have to have a certain synergy with the person where sometimes you go hard, sometimes you ease off, sometimes you open the game up a little bit, sometimes you try to be creative. If you fail, who cares? You're just having fun with your friend that you've known for 10 years or whatever, right? You know what I'm saying? So I think that's important, that to have training partners that play the game, that you're just playing a game, like a back and forth game, right?
Just like letting certain opportunities
listen, any board game you play, right? Any board game you play, or any game you play, it's a back and forth thing, right?
Right.
You know what I mean? A game that you play for fun, not for keeps. Any game you play for fun, it's a back and forth thing, right? So think of it like that on the mat. When you're playing a game with friends, it should be a back and forth thing. You open it up a little bit, so you give the guy a chance to try to do something, and then I do something, and then I counter. Sometimes I don't counter, and I'm like, oh damn, I'm in trouble. Like, and it's fun. You can laugh with your friends. It can be enjoyable, right? Because I don't have to worry about ego. I don't have to worry about like, oh my god, I'm gonna get hurt here.